Alright, so I wanted to offer a video for people that are putting together my action figure. I have some tips for those people that, when they put it together, they need to file it. You don't need to file it, but there is a way to clean this up without filing. And filing, what happens is, it becomes a little bit too loose on the joints. The method I'm going to show you is a lot easier, and it produces 100% joints because it actually takes the plastic and refurbishes it back into the piece and fills in all the little gaps. So here, this is Dexter, and if you look, he's a lot smaller now. So this is a 50% Dexter, and I've got it to the point where it's about that accurate. Head tilts, pivot, not too bad. So I'm working on this joint right here, and this is the ball joint, and it's probably by far one of the more complex joints within Dexter. These are fresh out of the actual printer. I have support material in here, and I just need to basically pull that out. Like that. Kind of hollows it out. You can see it. Right. I think one of the hardest things for me to do is just kind of stay in frame. You know what I'm saying? So I like using this type of X-Acto knife. It's big, it's bulky. I find that I don't cut myself very often with it because it's a chisel point. I just generally clear that out. I do have some finite detail in there that I just have to kind of go like this, and we'll take a file just to clean that support material out. So you have to get about 80% out of there. Here's my ball joint. I just immediately glue that. I don't want to keep mentioning brands, but I love this brand of super glue. It sets up within seconds, but note seconds. You can actually get it to line up really well, and if you put your finger on it like that and then untack it, it uses, how like your super glue sticks to your hands before it sticks to any product. It kind of uses that to melt the ABS a little bit on the sides. Weird. Can't describe it, but it's a really good brand of super glue. And I know some people say, oh yeah, I gotta use ABS or acetone to put together things. But the acetone, what'll happen, it'll melt parts, and you'll see that in a second. I'm going to be using acetone for something, but it's not going to be to super glue these things together. It does have a seam that's pretty nasty. I dictate on my build to be a 200% thicker extrusion on the bottom layer. You do that in Slicer. It's pretty nice. So if it's 200%, makes it stick really well to the bed. Leaves a little bit of an overhang though. So I got a print head that's like 0.5, so 200% of 0.5 is pretty freaking small still. Yeah, there we go, just general cleanup. So not filing per se, but to just clean off the outer edges there. Okay, sweet. Now here's the tip. So I got this piece, and I got this piece, and if you put them together, you'll see that it's really hard to turn. Okay, so I'm going to take some acetone here and just put it inside this joint, just like that. Then dump it out. Then quickly go over here and grab my ball and rotate this around. And once I get it to the point where I don't hear any noise, then I'll take it out. So it's about 10-15 turns, and then I just let it. And I set it to the side and let it dry. It's gonna stick to your fingers. It's gonna be awful. Okay, next part. Again, just doing the same. Just putting some of that acetone right in that cup. And it's like filing, what happens is you lose the material. This just squishes the material back into the joint. And it also cleans up the ball quite well. I'm trying to keep the camera in focus. You get this stuff underneath your nails, it's pretty awful. Especially with the black ABS. Alright, really working that joint in. Really working this one in. Just like that. So you can see these are really small parts. The 50% dexter is no doubt small. Okay, so now the only thing you have is a seam to deal with. It's actually quite worse on the camera than what it really is. If you look at it really close, there's only like this, maybe a very, very small 1/10 of a millimeter on there. So what I'll do is I'll leave it that way, and then I'll super glue this bottom part. Just like that. And I'll try to get some up here. Sometimes I'll take a file and just use what I got to put up on this other part. You don't want to get any of the super glue inside the ball joint though. Duh, right? Had to be mentioned. Again, trying to stay in frame. There we go. It's actually really good. Okay, another thing, if you don't have, let's say, access to the vise, especially with the smaller parts, I love using this. And it's got a dip in there, see that? So plans for the future is to augment this so it has a dip on the other side, or create a 3D part that fits on that. So you can go like that, bam. The only thing you're filing off is this flange. And while that sets up, I have the ability to work on it still as it's drying. Every once in a while I'll move this just to make sure the super glue didn't get on it. Get that flange out of here. So no doubt, what I'm probably most proud of is like when I work in 3D, I have a pretty good dexterity when it comes down to tools now. Like I was just the average computer nerd, and I didn't really put together too many things as far as models when I was a kid. But now, like, I could probably spar with the best of them. Okay, here's another type of joint right here. So I'm just going to kind of clean out the material that's around the edges. And I broke this file. It's my favorite file now. See it? Favorite file. Yeah, that's all I really need right there. This part's probably good to go, but here's the stuff that you shouldn't do, and this I'm just doing this. I say don't do this because really it's bad for you. It's ABS plastic, so I just do this for a second. Don't breathe. Stuff it will kill small creatures and mice. So I just hit it real nice right there. And right here. ABS actually like has a feature that gets in your lungs and never gets out. That's really small particles. I think it's something like cyanide. Generally I use a mask, but you have to wear like a very, very fine mask. These smaller parts, I do the hold breath, don't breathe method unless I'm talking, so I'll probably just shorten my lifespan. So there we go. That's all it really needs. Again, file off the outside. And what's nice about that glue is if it's drying just a little bit, the pieces of the actual plastic will go down into that glue and then hide your seam really well. I could stand a few more seconds, but I'll do it after the fact here. Okay, here's this part. Again, this is not going in there at all, right? And maybe a little bit, but it's definitely not churning. And then your normal instinct would be to file. So fight that. Acetone. And just work it back and forth, real ginger-like. Generally I start from just pressing a little bit into it. What you have to avoid is setting it down in there for any length of period, a tenth of a second, because then it will glue it into position. So you always have to kind of keep it in motion. Look at that, it's turning really nice now. And then I go the other way. Finally it spins, but it's not so much that I have a little bit of friction on it still. That's important because if you get it too loose in there, Dexter will fall on his face later on. You don't want that. Okay, so the glue's coming undone in on this thing because I'm speeding up the process too much. Okay. All right. Well, besides that, I do have to let this piece dry just a little bit more longer than what I got here. But you don't want to see a YouTube video on glue drying. So that's my process. I just generally use acetone to open these up. Okay, cool. So I'm going to let this piece dry a little bit longer. That's my process. I hope you enjoyed. Alright, so here's the finished product with the leg. Now, when you get it done, it's going to be really, really, really tough to rotate around. I just generally go like this, real patient-like. Pretty soon you'll be able to spin it 360 degrees. Don't force it so much. Use friction. Friction is important here. There we go. I feel it. It's going. And there we go. You have it. And just general cleanup on the seam. So no piece was generally filed throughout this whole thing put together on the other leg. Now this piece right here, like holes and stuff, they get bleed. You're gonna have to clean that out. When I generally design, I use the 2 hole variations based upon files that I have available, which is the 8mm and the 5. So this is a 5 taper. These are very common files out there. It goes to like 5 to 6 mil, and this bad boy right here goes all the way to like 7 to 8 mil. But when I design things, I try to keep designing around my tools, drill bits, stuff like that. There we go. That works out quite well, and he rotates just fine. Cool beans. So these get glued into position too. I'm a real boy. Weird. Have a good one.